Let's begin in the NBA in the Eastern Conference. It's the three-seeded Philadelphia 76ers taking on the two-seed in the Boston Celtics. The Sixers Celtics, they are matching up against each other for the 22nd time in the playoffs. That's the most series meetings between any two teams in NBA postseason history. Game one of this matchup will be Monday night at TD Garden on TNT. And in the regular season, the Celtics, they beat the Sixers in 3 out of the 4 matchups. The Celtics averaged 111 points per game. The Sixers averaged 107 points per game. The Celtics shot 50% from the floor. The Sixers shot 47% from the floor. Celtics also shot better from three-point range. Celtics shot 41% from 3. Sixers shot 36% from 3. And Joel Embiid, in his last matchup against the Celtics, the man dropped 52 points, 13 rebounds, 6 assists, the most dominant player on the floor, and he was sensational. And one of the matchups also earlier in the season, the Sixers played the Celtics very well. This was in Philadelphia. Jason Tatum has struggled all game long, and Tatum hit a game-winning three-point shot over the Philadelphia 76ers. Embiid shot a full-court heave. It went in, but time had expired, so the Celtics beat the Sixers in that game. And in the last matchup, when Embiid did have 52, Jaylen Brown did not play in that matchup in Philly. So, when I look at this matchup, Sixers versus Celtics, I got to be honest. I've been anticipating this matchup, ladies and gentlemen, since January. When I looked at the standings and I saw the Milwaukee Bucks, who were the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference throughout the season, and the Milwaukee Bucks had the best record in the NBA, I was thinking, okay, most likely we're going to have the Celtics and the Sixers in the 2-3 slots in the Eastern Conference. So that makes up for a tremendous second round matchup between these two teams who have so much history between each other. And in the Jason Tatum era, Tatum has gotten the better of Joel Embiid in their playoff series. I remember in the bubble, the Celtics swept the Sixers en route to the Eastern Conference Finals. So Tatum has gotten the better of Joel Embiid in their matchups in the playoffs so far. Now, when I look at the Philadelphia 76ers, let's start off with the Sixers. The Sixers, they are led by Joel Embiid. And Joel Embiid, to me, is the NBA MVP. You look at Joel Embiid's numbers this year in comparison to the previous 2 years. In the previous 2 years, in 2021, Joel Embiid averaged 31 points per game on 50% shooting from the floor, shot 81% from the free throw line in 68 games played. In the 2020 season, Joel Embiid averaged 29 points per game on 51% shooting from the floor, 86% from the free throw line in 51 games played. And in those 2 seasons, Joel Embiid was the NBA MVP runner-up. And this year, I believe Joel Embiid will win the NBA MVP. Look at his numbers this season. This year, Joel Embiid, he's averaging 33 points per game on 55% shooting from the floor, 86% from the free throw line in 65 games played. When it comes to the NBA MVP, yes, I believe Nikola Jokic has had a great season. He's won the NBA MVP in back-to-back seasons, and he is the leader of the Denver Nuggets. Giannis is arguably the best player in the NBA. He is a dominant force to be reckoned with. He led the Milwaukee Bucks to the best record in the Eastern Conference, the best record in the NBA. But I believe what Joel Embiid has done for the Philadelphia 76ers, leading them to the 3rd seed in the East, dominating in multiple games this season. And again, for him to shoot 86% from the free throw line, because we know Joel Embiid in the low post, he's a lot to deal with. So your only hope is to foul him and hope he misses free throws. Remember back in the day, as dominant and as great as Shaquille O'Neal was, Shaq struggled at the free throw line. Now, Shaq did make his free throws when it mattered the most, but for the most part, Shaq was a liability at the free throw line in late game situations. Joel Embiid is not. And Joel Embiid is a better free throw shooter and more reliable at the free throw line than even Giannis. And I think Giannis is overall a better player than Joel Embiid is, but I trust Joel Embiid more at the free throw line in late game situations more than I trust Giannis. We saw in Game 5 at the FedEx Forum of elimination game for the Bucks, Giannis missed, I believe, like 13 free throws. 13 free throws. He was scared to even catch the basketball in the late moments of that game because he was petrified of going to the free throw line. Joel Embiid is the exact opposite. He shot 86% from the free throw line this year, and I believe he had more MVP moments than Giannis and the Joker both combined. I remember their matchup earlier in the season. It was Embiid versus the Joker, and Embiid dropped 40 plus in that matchup. The Joker had, I believe, like 18. I can't remember exactly the numbers, but he had subpar numbers, and Embiid dominated his matchup against the Joker. And earlier in the season, Embiid and the Sixers, they beat Giannis and the Bucks in Milwaukee. I think the Bucks were on like a 16 or 17 game winning streak at the time, and Embiid and the Sixers completely dominated the Bucks in the fourth quarter of that matchup, and Embiid outplayed Giannis late in that game as well. So this Philadelphia 76ers team is led by Joel Embiid, and Joel Embiid in his last 2 games this year against the Celtics, February 25th, he dropped 41 points, 12 rebounds, 5 assists. April 4th, the game where Jaylen Brown didn't play, Joel Embiid dropped 52 points, 13 rebounds, 6 assists. And in that matchup, he scored 52 of the team's 103 points in the win. 52 of the 103 points for the Philadelphia 76ers were by Joel Embiid. And I think he has definitely elevated his game, and he's playing at an MVP level. And hopefully here in the coming weeks, the announcement will be made that Joel Embiid is the NBA MVP. Now, when it comes to the Philadelphia 76ers and the keys for the Sixers to have a chance to upset the Celtics in this series, I got 3 keys for the Sixers. The number 1 key is going to be who is going to help Joel Embiid from a scoring perspective offensively in this series. Because when I look at the Philadelphia 76ers, and I said this to my cousin back in January, I don't believe that James Harden is the Sixers' second best player anymore. I believe that Tyrese Maxey is now the Philadelphia 76ers' best player behind Joel Embiid. He's the second best player. And I think he's more consistent than James Harden is. This year, Tyrese Maxey, he's averaging 20 points per game, and he's averaging 4 assists per game, 3 rebounds. He's not the passer that James Harden is, because we know James Harden is a tremendous passer. James Harden for the season, he's averaging 21 points per game, but he's averaging 11 assists per game. That's where James Harden is dangerous now at this point in his career. He's more of a passer than even a dominant scorer like he was in Houston. The Philadelphia James Harden is a playmaker. The Houston James Harden was a scorer. And now on this Sixers team, I believe Maxey is a more dependable scorer than even James Harden is. And we've seen James Harden come up small in playoff moments time and time again in the past. I remember one year in Houston, James Harden, in a matchup where the Spurs didn't have Kawhi Leonard. It was Game 6. I'll never forget. It was Game 6 in Houston, in Harden's house. Spurs were leading 3-2 in that series. No Kawhi Leonard in Game 6. James Harden dropped, I believe it was like 11 points. And it was like on 2 of 11 shooting from the floor. He was pathetic in that game 6 elimination game for the Rockets. So we've seen James Harden come up small time and time again in the playoffs. So I believe that Tyrese Maxey is the Sixers' second best player. And I believe in order for the Sixers to have a chance to beat the Celtics, Tyrese Maxey is going to have to play at a high level for the Sixers in this series. He's going to have to play at a high level. I think it was game 3 when Embiid was struggling in the series against the Nets in game 3. In game 3 specifically, Tyrese Maxey completely took over the game in the fourth quarter for the Sixers. He played sensational. And I believe that was the game where James Harden got ejected. James Harden got ejected, Embiid was struggling, and it looked like the Nets were going to win and get back in the series, and Tyrese Maxey shut it completely down and played sensational in the fourth quarter. And I believe that he's definitely taken a step up as far as his role on this basketball team and what they need from him to be successful. So the number one key for the Philadelphia 76ers is going to be the production from Tyrese Maxey. Also, another key for the Philadelphia 76ers is going to be on the defensive side of the floor. You have to be able to contain one or the other. You can't allow Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown both to dominate. During the regular season this year, Jason Tatum averaged 30 points per game. Jaylen Brown averaged 27 points per game. You can't allow both Tatum and Brown to dominate. Like last night in Atlanta, the main reason why the Celtics beat the Hawks was because Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum both played at a high level, and they both had over 30 in that closeout game for the Celtics over the Hawks. So for the Sixers, they got to contain one of the Jays, either Jaylen Brown or Jason Tatum, to have a chance in this series. Now, the other key for the Sixers is going to be Doc Rivers out coaching Joe Mazzulla. That's the one area in this series where I give the advantage to the Philadelphia 76ers. You look at Doc Rivers. Doc Rivers, for his career, he's coached in 1,778 total games as a coach. He's won 1,043 games, lost 735 games. So he's won 59% of his games. Joe Mazzulla, on the other hand, this is his first season as the head coach of the Boston Celtics. So this is his first experience as a head coach in the postseason. And we all know playoff basketball is different than regular season basketball. Same in the NFL. Regular season football is different than playoff football. So I thought even in the Hawks-Celtics series, there were times where Quinn Snyder outcoached Joe Mazzulla. But the Celtics have so much talent, they were able to overcome Joe Mazzulla's inexperience as a head coach. In this series, for the Sixers to have a chance, Doc Rivers has to outcoach Joe Mazzulla. And I think that's very possible. Now, Doc Rivers has also had his shortcomings in the NBA playoffs. I remember in the bubble, when he coached the Clippers with Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, Doc Rivers lost a commanding 3-1 lead to the Denver Nuggets in the bubble. That was the Clippers' best opportunity to reach the NBA Finals and possibly win a championship in the Kawhi Leonard, Paul George era in LA. And they came up short. And they lost a 3-1 lead in that series. I think also earlier in his Clippers tenure, I think Doc Rivers and the Clippers lost a 3-1 lead to the Houston Rockets as well. So we've seen Doc Rivers get out coached and not make the necessary adjustments in playoff series before. But he has the advantage from a head coaching standpoint because Joe Mazzulla is inexperienced. And we're going to find out how good of a coach Joe Mazzulla is. So those are my three keys for the Philadelphia 76ers. Doc Rivers out coaching Joe Mazzulla. Tyrese Maxey elevating his game, consistently playing at a high level for them to have a chance, and also containing either Jason Tatum or Jaylen Brown. You cannot allow both of them to go off. Now, for the Celtics, one of the keys for the Celtics is going to be Al Horford. Al Horford has to play better in this playoff series. He wasn't very good against the Atlanta Hawks. His best game probably came in game 6. He hit a big-time three late in that game against the Hawks that helped the Celtics overcome the Hawks. But Al Horford wasn't very good against the Hawks, especially from an offensive standpoint. So they're going to need some production from Al Horford. Now, remember, Al Horford has history because he once played for the Philadelphia 76ers. And when the Sixers play the Celtics, those Sixers fans, they let Al Horford know and remind him of them being a fan base who boos the opposing team's players who previously played for their team. They always boo Al Horford when he's in Philadelphia. So Al Horford is going to be key in this series. He has to be able to hit open shots when Jason Tatum and Brown or Marcus Smart or Brogdon, gets into the paint and into the interior and they dish it out to Al Horford. He has to be able to hit his perimeter shots. He's a veteran. He's been in the NBA for multiple seasons. I expect Al Horford to play better in the second round compared to what he did in the first round. Now, the other key for the Boston Celtics is going to be them playing at a high level in high leverage moments. In game 5, the Celtics were pathetic in the fourth quarter. They allowed the Hawks to completely dominate in the fourth quarter of game 5. Trae Young outplayed Brown and Tatum significantly in game 5 in the fourth quarter. Remember, in that game, the Celtics were in command majority of that game. But down the stretch, Tatum and Brown were nowhere to be found. I don't even think Tatum attempted a shot in the final 5 or 6 minutes of that game. They were terrible. So offensively, down the stretch in the fourth quarter, the Celtics have to execute and make clutch plays at pivotal moments in this series. So that's another key for the Celtics as well. Also, for the Celtics, they have to protect the basketball. That was the biggest issue for the Boston Celtics last year during their run to the NBA Finals. And even in the NBA Finals, they didn't protect the basketball. Their turnovers were at a high rate. And in this series against the Philadelphia 76ers, you got to protect the basketball if you're Tatum, if you're Brown, if you're Marcus Smart. And I think that was the reason why they signed Brogdon in the offseason. They brought in Malcolm Brogdon to protect the basketball and have Tatum and Brown in the right positions offensively and have the right spacing so they don't turn the basketball over. So that's going to be another key for the Celtics. So those are my 3 keys for the Celtics. Al Horford playing better, also executing late in games in this series, and the Celtics protecting the basketball and not turning the basketball over. But when I look at this series overall, I believe that the Celtics are the more talented basketball team. I believe that the Celtics also have more depth than the Philadelphia 76ers have. They really, really do. And I also believe that Joel Embiid is the best player on the floor between these two teams. But I say it all the time. If Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum both play at a high level, neither one of them are superstars, but them both playing at their best and at their max potential, I believe them together is one superstar. So if Tatum and Brown plays at a high level, I believe that will offset Joel Embiid in this series. And also, another thing to keep an eye on in this series, Joel Embiid is going to be playing on a knee brace. And a few days ago, Doc Rivers said if the series started around the time that he made this comment, he said Joel Embiid would have been 50%. He would have been at 50%. We'll see, but he's going to be on a knee brace. The Celtics losing game 5 in Boston, that gave Joel Embiid an extra day of rest because this series was scheduled to begin Saturday, not Monday. It was originally scheduled for Saturday at TD Garden. But because the Hawks were able to beat the Celtics in game 5, that pushed game 1 to Monday between the Sixers and the Celtics. That will help the Sixers and Joel Embiid and their chances at being able to win this series. Also, I look at the schedule for this series. These games are every other day. The only time where there's going to be 2 days in between games is game 6 and game 7. Game 6 is scheduled for Thursday, May the 11th. And then game 7 is scheduled for Sunday, May the 14th. So that is advantage Celtics because there's not going to be a significant amount of time in between games for Embiid to get back close to being at 100%. And I think that is advantage Celtics. So considering the fact that these games are every other day, also considering the Celtics are the more talented basketball team, and they also have more depth than the Philadelphia 76ers have, I am rolling with the Celtics to beat the Sixers in 6 in the NBA Eastern Conference semifinals. Celtics in 6 over the Sixers. But it's going to be a tremendous series between two great teams. Everybody, go and follow Wise Guys on Twitter at Wise Guys _H. Also on Facebook, Wise